Bear down, Bears fans. The Chicago Bears could be considering trading for Mike Tomlin. Is this the right move? What's it going to cost? What does that end up looking like here in Chicago? We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Let's go. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. Only channel to talk Chicago sports, how Chicago talks. So make sure that you get in tune with us. Big shout out to everybody. It ended up being like over 300 people that just didn't know that they were subscribed when I brought it up in the last video. You guys end up hitting that subscribe button. Appreciate all of you guys for showing love to the channel. There was so many people in the comments too that were like, bro, I thought I was subscribed because I see your stuff pop up all the time. Like, I had no idea I wasn't subscribed. So big love to all of you guys, man. Just want to show my love and support to you guys. Mike Tomlin. I mean, things aren't going as we expected them to go in Pittsburgh this season, right? I think that we thought there was going to be a lot more of a jump, and there is chatter around the NFL that Mike Tomlin could actually end up getting moved on from in Pittsburgh. Now, we know that Pittsburgh wants to maintain its we've never fired a coach. We're not an organization that fires coaches at a whim. We're willing to let things play out and have time. They want to maintain that, right? That's the one thing, right, that the Steelers have always been known for. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up trading a guy like Mike Tomlin. And I guess here's the question for me, right? Like, what would something like that look like? Is this the right move to make, right? Like, there's a ton of questions that immediately pop up from this, but let's start here, right? Because we get this report from Diana Rossini, who comes out in her article on The Athletic and says there's been chatter that perhaps the Steelers would consider trading Tomlin to Washington, Chicago, or even Carolina to get some picks back. So it's not a done deal that the Bears would be the winners here or even the only team that would be interested in making a trade for Mike Tomlin. But, you know, you kind of have to sit there. I guess you start off with the capital, right? What are we talking about here? What are we going to be looking at if Mike Tomlin is traded? And I think the tough part about this is, right, when you look at some of the coaches that have been traded in history, the list of them has some big names on it, but when they were traded, only a couple of them had the same level of success that Mike Tomlin has had at the NFL level, right? The first one comes to mind right off the bat, right? Sean Payton, of course, had retired, wanted to come back, wanted to be the head coach of the Broncos, was still under contract with the Saints. So what do they end up giving up? First round pick in 2023, their 2024 second round pick in exchange for Sean Payton, and a 2024 third round pick. And New Orleans also sent a 2024 third round pick and Peyton's contract back to the Broncos. So I think that that's kind of a trade that you can kind of look at and say, okay, I can see this being something that the team builds around, right? Like that the Bears would be able to build a trade around, because very similar success in both of these guys' careers, right? When you look at a guy like Mike Tomlin, you see a guy who has a Super Bowl win, has been a part of a Super Bowl team, has had multiple playoff runs, but there's always been that, right? You only got the one, and it was Bill Cowher's Super Bowl team that he built, and then you came in and you took him to a Super Bowl. All of that, right? All of the rhetoric that is around Mike Tomlin. But when you look at the accolades there, right? Similar accolades as Sean Payton when you talk about success in the NFL. Now, Sean Payton has won a lot more, but I just let me double check that. Actually, let me double check that. But the one thing I will say is with Sean Payton, right? Like you look at you know, kind of the success that he's had with the quarterback position here. And I think that that's one thing that you'll have to take into account as well if you're sitting here talking about, you know, trading for a guy as the coach, right? This guy's success has been with Big Ben. Big Ben, say what you want about the guy, is one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, right? So what does that mean? Sean Payton's record is 159-96. That's pretty good. I'm not going to lie to you. It's almost like he's this Hall of Fame level head coach. And Mike Tomlin's record is, give me a second here. 170 and 100. So again, very similar, right? 159 and 96, 170 and 100. A little bit better for Tomlin in that situation. But I mean, 17 years versus 16, pretty similar. If I'm being 100% honest, very, very similar. So I think that this is a great comparison, a great starting point. That's the reason that I say all this, right? This is kind of a really good place to look at to me because, you know, Sean Payton is in this era. It's this era of trade. It's this era of draft capital. It's this era of value, right? All the other ones, right? We kind of have to go back a little bit further and look at those. But again, you're talking about a first round pick, a second round pick. New Orleans ended up sending back a third round pick, but you get control of the coach as well. Is that a trade that you would like to see the Bears make? Something similar to that? Maybe values have gone up or a different. And the different part is, right, Sean Payton interviewed for this job, got hired here. You knew he was the only one that was going to go there. Do we see the draft capital go up in this case because there could be a couple of teams bidding to get Sean Payton to get Mike Tomlin to be a part of their organization? This is not just a cut and dry situation here, right? Like, this is not just a, you know, we're just boom, we're in, we're out. Bears get have the best draft package, and so they're out of there, right? Like Carolina's, well, I guess they don't have a pick this year, right? But you would assume that they're going to be bad for a little while. That's a lot of rebuilding you got to do. Maybe you throw them in there and say, listen, we're going to have high draft capital for a lot of the future. If you bring Mike Tomlin to Chicago, they're going to end up getting good with Mike Tomlin, right? They're going to be a team that ends up being competitive with Mike Tomlin. So you're not going to get as much out of that draft capital in the future. There's going to be a little bit of a bidding war. Maybe this ends up getting higher. I'd love to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. Do you feel like that is something that you would want to see the Chicago Bears do? Would you want to see the Bears trade that draft capital? I think it would probably be the Bears' own pick this year if they were to do something like that, not the Carolina pick. You're not giving up the first overall pick for a head coach. And then I think that you would also have to talk about the second, maybe a future second round pick, or even the second round pick that you got from Carolina for this year, or a third round pick that you got for next year, right? Like maybe all of this draft capital we talk about that Ryan Poles has acquired ends up going to Mike Tomlin. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below on that, man. That's an interesting situation for the Bears to have their name thrown in on. Now, here's the thing. Is Mike Tomlin going to be traded? I'm not saying here nor there. I don't see the Steelers moving on from him. I think that they're very content sticking around with Mike Tomlin as their future. But if they are, would you want to see the Bears be a part of a trade for him? Let me know in the comments below, man. Here's the one part that, and I think that, and like the video if you agree, my biggest question on Tomlin. Now, he's had the highest success. He's won the Super Bowl. He's been the head coach of that team. That team loves him, right? That team is all in on him. Is this an Andy Reid scenario, or has this become somewhat of what we already have here? Now, never disrespecting Mike Tomlin to say he and Matt Eberflus are on the same level, but what is our issue with Matt Eberflus right now? He doesn't know how to hire coordinators. Right? He's a good DC. He can call plays. He doesn't know how to hire coordinators. He has no idea. No idea. Right? He doesn't know. I believe he's hired the wrong offensive coordinator. Clearly, he hired the wrong defensive coordinator in Alan Williams. I think that this defense is not getting called the same if Alan Williams is the DC of this team, right? He doesn't know how to hire coordinators. That's the same thing that we've been saying about Mike Tomlin for probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years now, right? Where we always look at this and we say, and it's never Tomlin's fault, right? At the end of the day, everybody's Mike Tomlin, he's great. He's got it. He's a great leader. And I'm not saying he's not any of that. But for it to be the Andy Reid situation, right? Andy Reid is the play caller. Andy Reid is the guy that goes out there and he actually institutes your offense. He's the one that's always going to be around there. Mike Tomlin is more of the culture setter, which I love that he has the culture. You bring that to Chicago. He's able to come in, turn things around. There's a legit culture here, right? Like even with how he's dealing with George Pickens, where he's like, bro, like y'all have no idea. Like he's like a thorn in my side. Like, and I think he's meaning it right in a joking manner, but it's kind of like, listen, George Pickens he's a diva. He's a wide receiver. He knows he's good, blah, blah, blah. And so Are you bringing that here to Chicago, that culture that you've set over there in Pittsburgh for years to come? And I'm never going to say that it's not a good culture. Or are you, but does that also come with us sitting here questioning the coordinators over the next 10 years? Because understand this. You trade for Mike Tomlin using draft capital. Oh, Mike Tomlin is tied to Ryan Poles as long as Ryan Poles is here. Mike Tomlin ain't going nowhere. If Ryan Poles is here 10 years, Mike Tomlin is here 10 years. We traded draft capital for that man. Right? This is not Mike Tomlin going out and just interviewing with the Bears, right? And I'm sure that there would be some interview process kind of to see, okay, who does this work with? How does this work? Blah, 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 which is fine. But the question of who's really the issue in Pittsburgh, to me, still rises no matter what. The question of who's really the issue with what's happening there, right? Guess what? Everybody was fire Matt Canada. Can't have Matt Canada. Matt Canada's terrible. My God. Oh, how did this guy? Mike Tomlin hired Matt Canada. Matt Canada, for what it's worth, worse than Luke Getsy. Mike Tomlin hired Matt Canada. And you can't separate those two things, right? Is he a great leader? Seems like it to me. Team fights. I get fight year in and year out. I don't ever see anybody complaining about Mike Tomlin, right? The guys that do complain about Mike Tomlin, you kind of know, right? Like Chase Claypool complained about Mike Tomlin. Here we go. Yeah, I'm saying, like, okay, the guys that are complaining, I kind of get why they're complaining, right? It's probably not the environment that they feel is going to be the best environment for them, and it usually ends up working out with those guys being out of the NFL. But I do still have questions on that. It's almost like kind of the Billy Donovan situation to me, where, you know, I've seen you have this immense talent, I've seen you have all these things go your way, and yes, you've had success, but you haven't had the ultimate success on a consistent basis, where we're talking about you in a Western Conference Finals every year type of situation, right? With the level of players that you've had. I look at Mike Tomlin kind of the same way. I mean, like, it feels like you're wasting away TJ Watt there. Right? It feels like guys' careers are kind of getting wasted there, because you're going 8-8, 9-8, and you haven't been able to solve the quarterback position. Yes, you went out and get Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett doesn't look good. I mean, I guess you could say he looks better than Justin Fields right now, but I mean, like, I'd still rather have Justin Fields than Kenny Pickett. Like, Kenny Pickett looks bad. So are you going to be able to find the guy that's going to be able to develop that guy? That's the situation we have here. And whether that's with Justin Fields, or whether that's with Caleb Williams, or whether that's with whoever the next quarterback, or if we keep the same quarterback, no matter what, you have to have the right guys in place to develop this guy. So my biggest question is this an Andy Reid situation, or is this more of a what we already have situation, and he's just a better name for it? Now, what I will say is this: the culture that he sets, people are going to follow. There's going to be no questions on it. There's going to be no slapping his culture in the face. The conversations that he has with his players are going to be real. They're going to be candid. And I think that would speak to a good coach here in Chicago. Is that going to be a great coach? Is that going to be the ultimate success, right? Even when you look at some of the other coaches on that list, and I think that this is interesting, right? Because when you look at a lot of these coaches, they didn't have that ultimate success until they end up getting to the team that they were traded for. When you look at a lot of them, right? Mike Holmgren from the Packers to the Seahawks in '99. Bill Parcells, Patriots to Jets. I guess he had a success with the Patriots as well. I can't say that. Parcells is one of those that's on there. But Belichick, right? Going the other way. Jets to Patriots. Belichick was one of those coaches where it was like, is this really what we want to do? He ends up getting moved, right? Like John Gruden, Raiders to Buccaneers. Herm Edwards, Jets to Chiefs, right? Like when you see some of these moves that are in here, you look at them and you're like, okay, well, these guys also had success and the ultimate success on the other side of their careers after they get to the destination where they were traded to. Could that be something that the Chicago Bears could replicate here? It'd be interesting to see. I'll tell you what, that would have to be the blackest team in the entire NFL. I mean, you're at the president, the GM, the head coach. There's gonna be some assistant coaching candidates in there as well, right? You got your OC and your DC. Who's he bringing with him on that one, right? Like, listen, it's about to be a lituation up at Hallis if that goes down, bro, and it's gonna be a lot of mad people out here. But it's just funny to me. It would be an interesting trade for the Bears. You're giving up serious capital no matter what. Would that be something that you want to see this Bears team do? At a minimum, I think here's where we end on this, right? If the Bears are in these conversations, does that mean that the future is locked in for Matt Eberflus already? I mean, listen, he could win out. They could go 8-9. You feel like your team's moving in the right direction. But conversations like this popping up, to me, are very, very interesting, because to me, that says that the decision on the head coach has been made, that the decision on the head coach is locked in, that the Bears are not going to bring back Matt Eberflus, who, I mean, if we're being 100% honest, a lot of us feel like he saved his job with the Detroit game because of how he was able to go out there, put a team on the field that is missing very key pieces of his defense, and they were able to keep going and be successful. Is this a Steve Kerr type situation where he comes in after Mark Jackson, where, if the Bears win their next two of their next three, whatever it is, you finish 7-10, 8-9, right? A huge leap in the right direction. That would be the hope there. Are we talking about this team possibly being to where you bring in the guy after who's like, okay, you saw a moderate amount of success. We can't overlook these things. This guy's going to get us past that hump. This guy's not going to allow. And what I will say, right, Tomlin, a part of one of those wins that the team as a whole sits there and looks at, and we were on the losing end of. Right, where you're sitting there talking about, oh, we got a historic loss. No team has ever lost a game when they would remember that last year, Steelers. Yeah, that was Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin's been a part of a lot of those games. So, and on the winning end of them, I should say. And so that's a big difference. Does this mean that this is the end for Flus? Right, the fact that we're hearing these conversations pop up, that we're hearing these things from Diana Rossini, that we heard, right? We had heard, I believe it's Diana Rossini again. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but we had heard that the Bears were very interested in Jim Harbaugh if he were to become available, right? And they would be one of the first teams that would be looking to talk with him. And I think that's also the question you have to, like, there's so many things, so many places that this thing can go. But when you look at, if Matt Eberflus is out of there, what's the better scenario here? Overpaying for Jim Harbaugh, you're probably going all in, talking about $15 million something over however long for Jim Harbaugh, or is trading for Mike Tomlin a better scenario for the Chicago Bears, to where, yeah, we're going to go out there, we're going to get Tomlin in here, he's going to bring his culture, he's going to bring everything, right? Like, I think here's the thing, no matter what, it feels like the writing is on the wall for Matt Eberflus, and I think that's a little bit of a shock, because a lot of us had believed, I shouldn't say a shock, I still said if this was the DC, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's a little bit of a shock from the aspect of we didn't think that he would be in a position to be getting fired, right? We thought that he had done enough. He's probably going to be back. There's probably going to be this. Maybe there's a change at OC. Maybe there's a change at quarterback. Maybe all of these things change, but there's probably going to be that level of change. But Matt Eberflus stays because of what he did with the defense. This seems to me like we could be heading the completely opposite direction, because every time a high-profile coaching candidate name comes up, we hear that the Bears are interested. Now, take it with a grain of salt, right? All these insiders sit there and they put news out, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not, and they keep moving on with their day. But this is to me a very, very interesting situation where, are we heading towards Matt Eberflus not being the head coach of the Chicago Bears, which at the end of the day, he's got a job next year no matter what. He'll pop up with a new job an hour after he's moved on. And I'm not going to, no, he's not going to just move over and be the DC. We just keep him on. We keep paying him the same thing. He's going to be the DC. That would be a wild situation. I don't believe he's going to move over and just be the DC here. So no, I'm no on that already. But hey, let me know how you guys feel, man. Is this the end for Flus? Would you guys look to trade for Mike Tomlin? Is this something that you think will help the Bears in the long run? All that and more has to be discussed. We'll probably go a lot more in depth on this on the Daily Show on Monday as well. But let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again to continue watching watching our Chicago Bears content, click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Big Bird Don, hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Peace.